So I wanted to bring an article or a few articles to you guys because the diesel pricing and diesel shortage is going to be a really, really hot topic that we're going to want to stay on top of because it's going to have a huge impact and lasting effect on everything, but most importantly, food and the availability or lack thereof, creating food shortages, amongst other things. And this one here says why the Northeast is quietly running out of diesel. The East Coast sees record lows of diesel inventories. The East Coast of the U.S. is reporting its lowest seasonal diesel inventory on record, and some trucking companies appeared spooked. And as we scroll down here, we can see this chart here of the diesel price per gallon consistently increasing over time. But what's most alarming is the amount of the increase that we're seeing towards the right of this graph here occurring after 2021. Everyday Americans don't fill up their cars with diesel, but the fuel powers our nation's agriculture, industrial, and transportation networks. More expensive diesel means the price of everything is liable to increase. Trucks, trains, barges, and the like consumed about 122 million gallons of diesel per day in 2020. We've got Patrick DeHaan, a vice president of communications at fuel price site Gas Buddy, reported that retail truck stops are hauling fuel from the Great Lakes to the Northeast, calling it extraordinary. We've also seen anecdotal reports from truck drivers posting company memos. I shared an email in my community post from Loves about the likelihood of a diesel shortage and preparing for survival. She shared uh, information from a trucker in addition to the truck driver interview that we had the other day. But here, this one, rate per mile masters, I don't know, or Craig Fuller, I don't know what app this is on, but he's posting a message here that says, "Good morning, effective immediately. Make sure you're fueling up at the end of the day." I cut and paste a message from Loves where many of you fuel currently. The message is as follows. And I think this is the same message that I put on the community post. And so basically, he's just sending out this message to the other drivers in his network so that they make sure to fill up because um, you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you wake up, need fuel, and you can't get it. So just make sure at the end of the day you have plenty. And then this one here from Peer Trucker looks like what Preparing for Survival posted on her community post. And this is just a message. I guess this is something that maybe can be communicated through this OmniTrax to truck drivers. And it just says, attention to all drivers. Hearing from Loves that they expect diesel shortages to hit some of their eastern U.S. stores in the coming week. We'll do our best to keep an eye on the situation and remove stores from fuel solutions as we hear about challenges at specific stores. So maybe this will just help these drivers not waste time and fuel trying to get to these love stations that may or may not have fuel. And I guess this ties into the diesel being transported from the Great Lakes because I guess normally they don't travel that far to fill up the East Coast. Um, But it says here the East Coast has lost half of its refineries. In the past 15 years, the number of refineries on the U.S. East Coast have halved to just 7. The closures have reduced the region's oil processing capacity to just 818,000 barrels per day, down from 1.64 million barrels per day in 2009. So I guess we kind of had this one coming, I guess. Billionaire John Katisimatides, look, I just butchered, I don't know what his name is, owns a small oil refinery in the U.S. East Coast and several hundred gas stations from Pennsylvania to New York. And it looks like a quote that he says, "I wouldn't be surprised to see diesel being rationed on the East Coast this summer." That doesn't sound like an enjoyable summer to me. It's a financial risk to bring diesel to the Northeast. The Northeast has increasingly relied on diesel from the Gulf region. Okay. Much of that diesel travels to the Northeast through the famous and much adored Colonial Pipeline. You may remember the 5,500-mile pipeline from last year when a ransomware attack shuttered it for nearly a week. It takes 18 days for oil to travel on the Colonial Pipeline from its source in Houston to New York City. That's a long enough time to prioritize Colonial Pipeline's financially risky for traders. Incredibly dangerous is what they call it. Well, adding fuel to the fire. They add, number three on this list here. We of course we can blame COVID and the crisis in Ukraine. The catalyst for the diesel shortage, of course, is the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, particularly Europe's desperation for diesel after weaning off Russian molecules. So, yeah, I mean, I guess, it's all parts of a whole, and we're all interconnected and tied together. They wean off Russians' oil and diesel as a result of the conflict. Then U.S. sends them the diesel we have, and on top of the fact that we've reduced our oil refineries and the ability to produce, or diesel refineries and the ability to produce the fuel. It's just one after another. Record diesel prices, tight supplies could be next blow to the U.S. economy. And this is that big news event. U.S. gas prices hit $4.37 per gallon, highest on record. It's that big news event that we get, and it could literally cripple the country, everybody. Diesel prices are soaring to record levels, and record low inventories of the fuel in parts of the United States are sparking fears of worse to come. Even if you've never bought a gallon of diesel in your life, as is the case for most U.S. drivers, high diesel prices can hit your wallet and the U.S. economy in multiple ways. The first way diesel prices impact the economy is it makes it expensive to ship. The second way is possible disruptions in the supply chain. None of it is good. And these are some things that I touched on yesterday that it's really just going to make living very difficult, very miserable, as we see high fuel prices, high diesel prices, and if we do see shortages and rationing of diesel, it is going to be bad. Why diesel supplies are low and prices sky high. The reason for the shortage are varied, but the sanctions and reduced supply of Russian oil because of its invasion of Ukraine have played a major role. Although very little Russian crude oil or diesel came to the U.S. market before the war, Europe is dependent on it, and about half the cars in Europe run on diesel, in addition to trucks and freight trains. The average price of diesel has soared to between $7.27 and $8.95 a gallon across Western European countries, and it's much cheaper in most of Eastern Europe. Those high prices have prompted a huge surge in exports of diesel to Europe from U.S. and Canadian refineries that would normally be supplying U.S. truck stops and trucking companies. Exports of U.S. diesel to Europe since the start of April are up 36% compared to the same period a year ago, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. So basically, we don't have diesel here because we're sending it to Europe because it's more profitable. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah, we're screwed. Truckers concerned over possibility of diesel fuel shortages that could impact supply chain The possibility of a diesel shortage is being monitored as diesel fuel prices across the country continue to surpass all-time highs. According to fuel industry experts, all signs are pointing to a potential diesel fuel shortage on the East Coast that could cripple an already fragile supply chain. Yeah, so it's just more of the same, and we are in trouble. Like, there's really no way around it. Like, I think that these warnings, these news reports and updates are heads up. But based on what I'm seeing and what I'm reading and what I'm hearing, uh, and the prices and everything, we've reduced our ability to produce, and it's more profitable to take what we do make and ship it to another country to make more money. So where does that leave us? I mean, it's not like overnight we're just going to have the ability to um, ramp up diesel fuel production. And these companies, they're not gonna make less money. They're not gonna lose money. They're gonna go, they're gonna go where they're most profitable and what makes the most sense for their business and shareholders and the bottom line. So prepare yourselves, everybody. It's gonna be a wild ride.